everybody. Welcome back to my Fireside chat. I'm so excited to have my dear friend on today, Marlie Massena. I have known Marlie for, oh my gosh, I think 10 years now, or almost 10 years, but the time has flown so much. She's the type of person who I encourage all my clients and friends to be around. You want to be around people that are going to lift you up. And when you have time with them, you feel so inspired to like conquer the world. And that's definitely how I feel after our conversation. So I know you're going to feel that way too. So Marlie, thank you so much for joining us. Can you share a little bit with everybody who you are, what you do, and take it away?
Absolutely. Well, you are far too kind. I'm not sure I deserve that introduction, but I will take it. I'm Marlie Massena. I'm a marketing executive and brand strategist. I've been working in that field for about 13, 14 years now. I am a dog lover, bonus mom, um, stand-up paddleboarder, and shopaholic, to name a few things.
I love it. And you have reeled me into your world of shopping. It's very dangerous. I tread lightly when I go shopping with you. So you and I have worked together professionally, which turned into this beautiful friendship. And we've talked about this for years, the whole world of dieting, right? The
Yeah.
pressures of attaining a certain physique, fitting, especially for you because you were in PR and fashion and events, and there's a lot of pressure. So let's talk a little bit about that pressure that you felt being in that space. You can start as early as when your career started or as most recently, and how you pivoted from that mindset.
Absolutely. Well, I have to say, and I think most of us, if we think back, really have that moment that came from when we were much younger. So, yes, I did work in fashion for 7 years. I worked in PR for far longer than that. But I was also an athlete when I was younger. I played soccer, I danced, I ran track. And all those things require that you wear not that much clothing. I was a sprinter. We wore these little briefs and tank tops. And from that, from a young age, I remember wanting to look a certain way in them, right? And especially as women of color, I grew up in an environment where I did not see a lot of people who looked like me, both in my real life and, on TV in very specific roles, but I didn't fully relate to who they were entirely, right? So you wanted to emulate what you saw around you, and what I saw around me wasn't what I saw in me and in the mirror. So I remember even little things like when I was younger, trying to tuck in my butt and tuck in my lips, which breaks my heart to hear myself say. But those are the things that stuck with me as I got older. And it became this like layer cake of, wanting to look like the girls around you, wanting to look like the girls on TV, wanting to look like the sprinters you see on TV. And, my body has always been a little bit different than that. So there were moments when I definitely exhibited toxic behaviors at a much younger age. And I think we know now to look for those things. Like I mentioned, I'm a bonus mom and I'm very, very cognizant to what happens in my household. And I look for the triggers I had when I was younger, and I try to eliminate some of the language that I found harmful.
Yeah.
But that followed me up through adulthood. And then, working in fashion, I love now that there is so much diversity in that field. But again, it wasn't that long ago, but there wasn't a lot of it either. You had to be that, Kate Moss heroin chic look. It's
Yeah.
toxic and it's awful to say, but those were my role models. And so I'd say that's where that seed was planted.
I love, oh my gosh. And I say this every time you share your story. It's almost as if you're sharing mine. I really, really, really resonate with what you were saying, like what you saw around you and what you saw on TV, because what was being emulated as beautiful did not look like us, right? And so therefore we wanted to shrink ourselves down. So in terms of like shrinking our bodies down, do you feel like that also shrinked who you were? Like, were you a little bit more quiet? Were you a little bit more subdued? Like, do you feel like it had an overall effect on you mentally and physically?
For sure. I mean, I definitely would walk into a room and I'd assess whether or not I was the biggest person in the room. And the average American woman is a size 12, 14. And I fit right below that, right? So to think that I had to walk into a room and literally assess everyone's body type
Mhm.
is toxic, not just to me, but to everyone else who I'm projecting my own body insecurities onto.
Right.
So I would do that, and then I would base my personality on whether or not I needed to be, cooler, funner, smarter to overcompensate for the fact that I didn't feel like I was the thinnest or the prettiest in the room. And so, I again, we don't always articulate the things we experienced or we thought. And when you say that to someone, of course it feels harmful. Of course it feels toxic. And that's why I always encourage you to surround yourself with people who you can talk to, because once you say those things out loud, not only will the other person, probably tell you listen, you shouldn't feel that way, but you hear yourself say it and you're like, that's not healthy. Like, it's not healthy for me, it's not
Right.
healthy for our environment. Let's hopefully do something about
Right.
this.
I agree with that because I've like, especially when I think back to when I worked corporate and like I would have conversations and like, you get comfortable and then you finally open up and they'd be like, you feel that way too? It's like finally someone agrees with me. Like finally someone else doesn't think a salad is sufficient enough for, and I just love that. Like it's like so many things that us as women, I feel like we're like suffering privately and secretly with. And I think just being open, like what we're doing right now, just having open conversation about it. And I just love that. So, as a bonus mom, you talked about editing certain types of trigger words or conversations. What are some things, because we're both from Caribbean homes, so what are some things that maybe used to trigger you in the past that you're very aware of not saying now?
Well, so my first comment on that is going to be I talk about boundaries a lot because my triggers are not your triggers. And so, as a bonus mom, my little one, not so little, has very different triggers than I, very different body type, and therefore very different feelings and a way point of view from the way she approaches the world. So to say to someone, you'd never say, "Oh my God, you're looking so fat today." It's
Right,
right. You'd never say that. So
right.
to say to someone, "You're so skinny," they're going to be triggered by that too. A lot of times they may not be trying to be thin.
Yeah,
And so we stay away from any words that characterize someone, right? Because saying, "I am fat, I am skinny." No, you're a human who is
right,
in a body, and
right,
there are not boxes that are A, B, C, and D. That's not correct. So I personally always used to talk like that. "I'm so fat. I'm having a fat day. Oh my God, I can't fit in my jeans. I can't eat that food. It's bad."
right,
And again, that doesn't mean you don't have those thoughts. We're people, and we came from that age of Weight Watchers, right? Like we're very similar age. Like we came up in the age of like Jenny Craig and
yes,
horrible food that tasted disgusting and didn't have enough
Atkins,
calories for you to exist on.
right,
So we don't really talk about that in my house. I don't talk about being on a diet. I talk about my lifestyle. I don't exercise or work out. I train,
right,
right? Because that has such a positive connotation. Olympic athletes train, and so they are working on their bodies, and it has a building point of view. I don't really talk about the scale. I don't really deal with my scale. I've lately tried really not to get on it. And listen, I'm all about body acceptance. That doesn't mean you have to accept things about yourself that are unhealthy. If I ate 6 cheeseburgers a day, that would be unhealthy for a lot of reasons, weight aside. So we focus on health. We focus on how we feel. And look, if your jeans are a little tight, do what you got to do about that. But the mentality that keeps you from getting up in the morning and wanting to put on clothes and wanting to go out with your friends, that is not healthy, right? And it's a whole package of our mental health. And
yeah,
a part of it is the way you treat yourself and you think about yourself.
yeah.
And one of the things I saw somewhere that was so true is you'd never talk to your friends the way you talk to yourself.
Mhm.
I mean, if you were like, "I'm having a horrible day, I hate the way I look," I'd never be like, "Yeah, no, girl, it's
Yeah,
not good." I might say, "Hey, like, what should we do to make you feel better? Like, do you want to schedule walking dates?" I just did that with a girlfriend recently.
mhm,
We just felt like we needed to move more. We're all
yeah.
working from home. I'm working in this little thing. It's like a tiny office closet. So that it was about finding solutions and being positive and treating yourself kindly, you
Right.
know?
Yeah, so our kids are in different age brackets, but mine, who just turned 5, I always tell him not to comment on people's bodies. And I, even though like in school, like certain titles of the books, like I'm trying not to be too strict about it, but like I feel like, the fat little pig or things like that. There's certain
Mhm.
books that are titled a certain way. And fat is a descriptive word, but the way it's used, it's misused. So it's just such a fine line on like how you're molding these children for how they feel about themselves, how they feel about others, what is considered beautiful, and so I just love how you're just being conscientious of it, especially with a teenage girl. I think that's so important. And I love how you use the word training. I never thought of that. That is so, the attachment to that is just right in itself is strength. And so I think that's amazing. So with that shift in your mindset, is this aligned with the time where you said, Nadia, you text me and you said, I'm giving up dieting. And I almost did jumping jacks. I was like, yes! You know what I mean? So, like, does it align with when you became a bonus mom? Were you just sick of this shit? Or, like, what happened?
Yeah, I do think it came right around the time I was becoming a bonus mom. It came around a time when my mental health, I'll be honest, I was struggling.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it was either right at the beginning or during COVID. And I was home a lot. And the whole reason I would diet would be to get to a place where I was happy with my body. And I could never get there, right? I'm 36 years old. I probably remember dieting starting at 10 years old. And I will tell you, I won't say who because I don't want him to get like hate mail or anything. But I remember being young and I think I was around 10 and we had an event coming up. And I remember going on a diet and someone in my family said, "Oh my God, you lost weight. You look good." Click.
Yeah.
Like that moment, I remember what I was wearing, where I was, who said it,
Yeah.
and that person meant well, right? Because we tend to compliment people. You look great. You've lost so much weight.
Great.
But maybe they were in a relationship and they've gained happy weight, as my doctor called it. Why are we not congratulating them on feeling good about life?
Right.
Maybe they just finished running a marathon. Maybe for the first time in their lives, they're working out consistently. Like
Right.
you focus a lot on that external gratification.
Mm.
Um, and I always remember that moment. And I was like, I've been chasing that high. It's like a
Yeah.
drug. I've been chasing that high
Wow.
for my whole life. And I'm not going to get there. One, because my goals was a picture of me at 20
Right.
when I was like running track and exercising 6 hours a day.
And you were
Um,
20, and
and I
your
was
body
20.
changed. Yeah,
I was
exactly.
a child.
Yeah.
But I also, if I was doing it to get happy, and I could never be happy because I was depriving myself.
Yeah.
Also, I was noticing other side effects, right? My hair wasn't as healthy as it used to be because I was literally depriving myself of nutrients, right? So I'd have like 1,200 calories a day. And I don't even like to give power to the things I did because I'm not trying to incentivize other people to do those things.
Right.
But it was not healthy. And so I eat for nutrition. I eat what makes me feel good. I don't eat with reckless abandon, but it's not necessarily about the food I eat. I try to enjoy what I'm doing and the experiences I have. I was getting to a point where I wasn't going out with my friends because I was afraid to eat, and that really was harmful. And I will say I was definitely having a disordered relationship with food.
Mhm.
Now, I think in our cultures, in our communities, that being African Americans, that being Caribbean, um, we don't talk about eating disorders. We don't talk about disordered relationships with food. It seems like mental health is definitely getting there. And I think I'm so thrilled to see that. But we've got to talk about it more because a lot of people suffer in silence. And I think
Yeah.
if I'd realized it earlier, I might have caught myself earlier, but I caught myself when I did. And you know what? A lot of the times you're the only one looking at yourself that way.
Oh my God, all the
Mhm.
time. All the time. You have said so much. Okay, so first of all, with the disordered eating, I read something and I read an article. A lot of disordered eating is labeled as healthy, right? Like
Yes.
right? And
Yes.
it's so, you're right. It's the deprivation
Right.
of calories. And
Yeah.
when I was before, like I feel like I was onto this before it was the thing. Like I never really, I would get clients and they'd be like, no, but I want to lose weight. And I'm like, no, let's get strong. And I feel like I've lost clients in the past because, they weren't, and it's strong. It's important for me that when I work with someone that we're aligned, right, in our thinking,
Yeah.
or you're open to a new way of
Okay.
thinking.
Right.
And it was always, but I want to lose weight, but I want to lose weight. And I've talked to other nutritionists that they're struggling because they still have that clientele that is just like, no, I have to lose weight. And it's not about, fueling your body. It's not about, nutrient dense foods and like just being
Yeah.
healthy. So I love that you said that. And then what was the last thing you said at the end? I was just like, oh my God, yes. Ah.
I
But
think,
anyway,
mental health, our mental health journey involves all of that, and
yes,
we've
it
got to be
totally, yes,
cognizant.
yes. And so like you said something else, like in terms of like disordered eating. I remember when I joined a PR firm, because I used to do PR like you, and I remember they all went out to lunch and everyone had a can of Diet Coke and a side salad. I felt that I was the only black girl, It was like I felt I was already I was tall and statuesque. I always felt
Mhm.
bigger, and so I was just like, is this what I have to eat? And
Yeah,
it's just I
and
feel like
everyone at that table is starving.
yes, yes, and God
Yeah,
knows they're
same
probably
here.
eating when they get home.
Yeah.
Um, because I relate to so much of what you're saying. So with all that and when did you realize, like, when did that light go off for you? Like, I've been chasing this high forever and this is not healthy. Like when was that? Was it during the pandemic, just before the pandemic?
I mean, I would say just before. I'm like, my life has been in transition the last few years, right? And you hit your mid 30s and things change and your priorities change.
Yeah,
And I was always trying to get to a place that I was 10 years ago or 12,
right.
whatever it was. But I would say things like, when I lose weight,
Mhm.
when I get to this size. And I just was like unhappy.
Yeah.
And I was really assessing a lot of reasons why I was unhappy. And a lot of it had to do, like I said, it's a whole package, right? So if I'm looking at my pie chart of happiness, a slice of it for sure was, what I was doing with my nutrition, and the way I was looking at exercising. And I was so grateful to be able to discover that about myself. And so, I was grateful to get to work out and get to train. And I
Yeah.
had to really train my mind to, I get to wake up this morning and do this, right? I
Right.
get to have an abundance of food to choose from. And I
Yeah.
get to either have a salad or pizza. And
Yes.
it's not bad or good. It's just how I'm choosing what I'm putting in my backpack of tools today to get me through the day. Because especially if you train, you require energy. And I trained for a half marathon a couple years ago, and I remember feeling a hunger like I'd never felt
Oh my
before.
gosh.
Right? And it's a reminder, you're like, oh my God, food is fuel.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
gotta eat, otherwise I'm gonna pass out in the street
Yeah.
at mile 12 and it's
Right.
not gonna look
Right.
good.
Passed out lady in aisle 12. Yeah, for real. Like and I'm a fainter too, just by nature. And then so I
Yeah.
remember when oh my gosh. All right. See, I knew this was gonna happen. We're doing a two-parter series, ladies and gentlemen, and I've got this girl already past our mark. But I'll share this, and then But I remember I started seeing a nutritionist, and it was more for my thyroid and postpartum weight gain, and it was after
Mm,
my first son, and like the restrictions in that meal plan, I
mm,
literally was like programmed to be like, well, I can't eat that. Oh, she said I can't eat that. She said I can eat that. And I remember going to an event, leaving starving. It was a Caribbean, they
yeah.
didn't have anything that she was telling me I should eat, right?
Mhm.
And I fainted the next morning and
Oh
it
my
was
God.
terrible. And
Yeah.
I hit my chin and I had to get stitches.
Oh my
And that's
gosh.
when I was just like, no, this
It's
is
too much. You really have to discover what works for you, right? There
yeah,
are some people for which dieting culture is not toxic and for which they're unaffected by those things.
Yeah.
But for me, I had to assess myself, what I needed, what I didn't, and what I was putting out there into the world. Like, if it
Yes.
became all I talked about, all I did, that's not a very interesting person.
Right.
The interesting person is the person who goes out and has drinks with friends. I mean, from my perspective and in my life, that's what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that, I just became kind of boring
Yeah.
and kind of like a scary person. So, I think ultimately it's about balance and boundaries.
Yeah.
And you also have to learn to just say no. I
Yeah.
remember, it would be weird. I don't want chocolate cake, and I'd be at a gathering with people, and they'd be like, "Why aren't you eating the chocolate cake?" And then
Oh,
I'd eat
the
the cake.
question.
I'd feel
Oh,
horrible about myself, and I'd be like, "But I didn't even want the cake in the
yes.
first place." So I've become more comfortable with saying you never have to do anything,
Right.
And so the one good thing I will say from having gone and done every diet under the planet is that there are some takeaways from things that are right, because at their core they mean well and they are trying to get you healthy, and it just doesn't work for me. But I remember my Whole 30 book, the very first sentence in Whole 30 book is, you never have to do or eat anything you don't want to eat. Even if
Well,
it's your
that's good.
sister's wedding and she's giving you wedding cake, you don't have to, right? You can take a bite and move on from it.
Right.
And so the boundaries for me have been a lifesaver, and I communicate that. And if people are not comfortable with that, that's going to be the work that they have to do on their own. I can't be responsible for their relationship with food and nutrition
Right.
and working out. I can only work on myself.
Right. Beautiful. Beautiful. Well said. Okay. So I want to end with what we'll pick up our second part of our interview with in 2022, a little bit about goal setting, right? Like, as you're looking
Yeah.
into the new year, do you set goals? Do you set goals every day? Are you, I am, I am not about New Year's resolutions.
Yeah.
But you can have a different take on it. So before we end, like, how are you looking into is it more about your overall health, your career? Talk to me. What are we looking at here?
Yeah. So, well, two things I want to say about that. The first is, I like to be behaviorally focused, right? Because the behaviors are what get you there. So, if you think about where you want to be as 10 feet up and the ladder, if you don't take a step every step of the way, if you don't climb that ladder, you're not going to get up there, right?
Right?
So, I'll focus on, I'm going to train 4 times a week, and I'm going to make sure I make food decisions that make me feel good, right? And what feels good
Beautiful.
is different for everybody. But in terms of a goal, I mean, I'm going to give whoever's listening out there some homework, which is to audit your surroundings. And if you're a social media person, go through your Instagram and see if what you are ingesting visually every day makes you feel good.
Yep.
Because if you're surrounding yourself with goals and that doesn't make you feel good,
Yep.
then there's no reason to do that. So
Yep.
audit your surroundings, ingest what feels good visually, and I promise that alone will have such an impact on your mindset.
Such a huge impact. And I actually went through that after having my first son. I realized, like, I had all this weight gain. I hadn't gained that much weight in so much, and for me it was still about the aesthetics, but I was slowly starting
Mhm.
to learn about how it made me feel. I didn't like how I felt.
Yeah.
And then going through these feeds of women who were popping out babies, and, like, it just made me feel like crap. And so that's where I started to learn that habit. And I solely believe in that too. So I love that you shared that. And I love that you gave my audience a little bit of homework.
At
Um,
the end of the day, listen, you don't get an award for eating the least amount, right? No one
right.
looks back at their life and says, I really wish I ate less. They look
Yeah.
back at their life about and think about relationships and moments they had. And
Yes.
so I just want to make good memories.
That you can fully enjoy, right? And not be wrapped up about something else. Yeah, it takes practice. And it definitely, if it's something that's ingrained and learned for years, it takes a lot of practice. But I love that you share that. So before I send you on your way, can you please share with everybody where they can find you, what you have cooking for the new year or presently? And yeah.
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram is the best place. I'm at Marlie JM. You can follow my shenanigans there, and that's usually the best way to catch me.
I love it. Thank you so much, Marlie. I can't wait to have you back in the new year. Thank you for always sharing your knowledge. I appreciate
Thanks, Nadia. Always a pleasure.
it. Bye.
Bye.